discussion. When we went for that break, we were still discussing about sin, angels, and the mercy of God. So I want to pose this question to Faustine, that why should I be burdened by sin such that God shows me his mercy? Why shouldn't God take away this sin such that there is no need for mercy?
First of all, starting with that case, according to what you have said, that why should I be burdened by sin in order
To receive God's mercy.
Do you mean for you to receive God's mercy, you have to first be a sinner?
That is what I want you to elaborate more.
No, you don't need first.
So
be a
even
sinner.
the holy people need God's mercy.
No, it's like this. God, okay, it's true. According to the of Sister Faustina, God Himself said that He is more merciful to sinners than to the just, and He gave a reason, because it is to sinners that who are in most need of His mercy. Because do you know why? Because sinners, why are sinners are so in most need of God's mercy? Why sinners are in most need of God's mercy? Because because of their destination, their eternal destination. It is terrible. That is the most terrible thing that can ever happen to a human being. The eternal destination of a sinner, of not being with God, of not being with love, of not sharing God's happiness forever and ever, but sharing the opposite. Due to that, because our God has a heart, a compassionate heart, He sees them as people who are in most need of His mercy. Knowing that you have to first be a sinner for you to get God's mercy. Because even the just, to be just, it's because of God's mercy through His grace. And grace, because already, according to the of Sister Faustina, already the intimate union of us Christians with God, for us to have that union with God, God to unite with us that intimately, that is another revelation of God's mercy. Creator, according, because Faustina measured this according to the holiness, the greatness of God, and this being our Creator, that He unites with us. God revealed to Sister Faustina according to the diary. Because of time, I'm not going to read these paragraphs, but it is paragraph 1576. 1576. God Himself revealed to her that there is a gap. If he was to speak normally, or with justice, there is a gap between God and His creatures, a big gap, which is filled with His mercy, that we can now unite with Him. You may be used to the union with God, but for us to be united with God, it is because of His mercy. Otherwise, we are nothing, totally nothing to God. So, why did I come to that? The just to be just, it's because of God's mercy. You can't say that it's only sinners that you have to first be a sinner in order to experience God's mercy. Because when they're just, it's because of God's mercy that they are just through His grace. So, but to sinners, why we normally capture sinners as the people who are in need of mercy? It's true, they are in most need of mercy of God. And even Jesus revealed to Sister Faustina that most merciful to sinners more than the just, because they are in most need of my mercy. Why? Because of their eternal destination. If they are not helped, it is very terrible. It's the terriblest, if I'm to say, the most terrible, the eternal destination of sinners. That's why Jesus, the heart of Jesus, yekubira nnyo eri abonoonyi kuba bali mu kabi, bali mu bwetaavu. Let me hope and try it.
In addition to that, there is something where our Lord says, without me you can do nothing, or you are nothing. He says it in the diary of Saint Faustina. And so many saints have been saying that without God we are nothing. So Jose Maria did that. And he said you're a zero, in everything you're a zero, but you have to be with Jesus. So even in our, basically if God did not show us mercy, we would do nothing. That's the actual thing we have been trying to talk about. That's it.
Okay. So this brings us to the next part of who. It has been answered partly. Who deserves this mercy? Is it only Christians? Since we are here talking about Jesus, God, what about our friends, the Muslims? What about the religious people, the witch doctors? What about who receives this mercy and how do we receive this mercy of God?
It's the opposite.
Yes.
Okay. God is not merciful. It's not we who determine the mercy of God. God being merciful, it is already one of his attributes. Let me say, his nature. God is just merciful, fully merciful. That is his nature. Yenkola ye katonda wa kisa. Tasinzirira kufa okubeera ow'ekisa, but already wa kisa. So, every person who is in need of mercy of whatever kind, whether witch doctor, and not every person, because every person already needs mercy, whether witch doctor, whether Muslim, whether Catholic, whether born again, whether a pagan, God is merciful to us. There is no certain people that they deserve God's mercy, that is merciful to the certain people or to the Catholics only. No, God, that is his nature. His nature is just merciful. It's not we who determine his mercy towards us, but it's just merciful. But just because there is a little bit of a condition, God is already merciful, but there is a little bit of let me say a condition maybe for us to experience that mercy, because it's already revealed to us, it's with us, it's already within us, among us, amidst us. That is trust. Trust is very hard to experience God's mercy when you don't trust. Because of that, some people, they may say they are not experiencing God's mercy because they do not choose God, or they distrust in God's mercy. And that's not the end. It doesn't mean that God has given up on them. No, he still does his part, but we have to also play our role to accept that mercy, because he cannot force his mercy to us. We accept, we have to accept in order to experience it. But some people fail to accept God's mercy, and they conclude saying that God is not merciful to them. But it's we who have played that part to accept God's mercy. But otherwise, in brief, as I'm concluding on that, it's not we who determine God's mercy. It is already an attribute of God. That's the nature of God. His love and mercy itself. For us to experience it, we have to accept. Some people fail to accept, and they conclude that God is not merciful to them.
Is that where the famous phrase, Jesus, I trust in you, comes from?
But in addition to that, yes, the thing of trusting is very important, and if you don't trust, you can't get that what we want. That is mercy. And there are two other things that you could add on trust. So trust is one of them, and it is very important. Secondly, we have to ask for God's mercy. If we don't ask for it, then He can't give it to us. We have to ask for it, because if we refuse to ask for it, we just impede. And then thirdly, we ourselves ought to be merciful to others. It brings us to the story of that unforgiving servant. He puts someone in debt, and then also he is indebted to the king, but refuses to forgive this one. Now, notice that this person actually trusts in the mercy of the king. He does, and he asks for it. He asks for it, and he trusts that that king can actually forgive him. But he doesn't forgive this other person. And what happens to the king actually also puts him into prison. In other words, he denies him the mercy that he asked for, because he himself was not forgiving others. So those three conditions still stand. There is a summary. A summary of A, B, C. A, ask for God's mercy. Then B, be merciful to others. And then C, completely trust in God's mercy. So those are the three that if we have them, we can get that.
If we stick to point B, which is being merciful to others,
yes,
in what way can we show mercy to other people?
That's a very important and very good question. How can we show mercy to others? Now, mercy, how could I say? Let me just put in a certain kind of phrase. We are most merciful when we are most like God, or when we are most like God. So for that reason, how did God show mercy to us? Mainly, first of all, it's through love. Greater love has no man than this, that a man gives up his life for his friends. So basically, to give up oneself selflessly for others, that kind of generosity, whether it could be giving in clothes or something, basically it's just to give in a part of myself for the good of my friend. In that way, I'm showing mercy. That's a summary of how to show mercy to another person.
Okay. And I'm going to pose this last question, and I want it answered in this short time that we have been left with. It was the topic of this discussion. In 2 minutes, Mr. Faustin, how can you tell me, how can you convince the sinner that whatever he or she does, God will be merciful to that person? Convince us that God is always and has been and will be merciful to us in all situations.
Okay. In 2 minutes,
2 minutes.
I was going to use a certain paragraph, a good paragraph that answers that direct, but because of time,
You can read.
You can.
because of time, okay. First of all, the answer is simple. The question seems to be hard, but the answer is simple. It's simple. To convince a sinner that God is merciful to him, first of all, God, because of me or you, a sinner who want to be convinced, because of you, God the Father sent his only begotten Son. He became man like us. He lived among us. And he died. Remember the passion of our Lord? He died bitterly. He emptied himself for you. Not only that, he decided because of you to remain with us in the sacraments until the end of the world. For you, God, it is as if he's putting himself at service, serving you. The paragraph, one of the paragraphs concerning that, Jesus himself said to Sister Faustina, if my words cannot convince you of my mercy I have towards you, at least let my passion convince you. I beg you, there's a certain paragraph I wanted to read, and it is
1275. This is the Uganda version. 1275. Omuwandiisi wange wandiika nti ndi wa kisa eri aboonoonyi okusinga eri abatuufu, nakka okuva mu ggulu lwakubeera boonoonyi. Omusaayi gwange gwayiika ku lwabwe baleme kutya kusembera gye ndi, be basingira ddala okwetaaga obusaasizi bwange.
Yeah. Connecting this topic, this subtopic, the topic we began with. I said as we were beginning that God intended, the intention of our God to create us, it was because of his generosity. He wanted to share with us his happiness. But because of sin, we fell. And we started getting away from that line. Because of sin, man started getting away from the line. We started getting away from the line that God intended in the beginning as was getting us. We started, we diverted to the way that does not lead to happiness. We choose evil instead of love. We choose evil because of God. But because God is merciful, because he loves us, he came again to save us again from the wrong path we had taken. And that's how the mystery of salvation comes in. And all what God did for our salvation, he did it for each and every sinner. So if you are discouraged, or you are coming to being desperate, or you are giving up because you are a sinner. One of the ways I can convince you, simply go and meditate upon the mystery of the salvation. See what God passed through, see all what God did to save us from that path, in order for us to inherit what He intended for us from the beginning. I think if you go deep on contemplating and meditating upon the mystery of our salvation, you get the answer. You'll be convinced. You'll be convinced, as Mr. President has posed it to me. How can I convince a sinner? The best way a sinner can be convinced towards God's mercy is to understand the mystery of salvation. What all God did through Jesus Christ to save sinner from sin, so that he may inherit heaven, to be with Him in everlasting happiness, which He intended for, which was intended for him right from the beginning by God.
Okay, thank you for that. Very wonderful. And let us put the end of this discussion in the hands of our Mother. I have been told that the mere fact that God gave us His Mother on the cross is a way of showing mercy to us, His children. But that will be another discussion. Let us end with a Hail Mary. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God,
Pray for us
sinners,
now
now and at the hour of our death.
and the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.